from Barrio Queen on Fox Sports 910 and the iHeartRadio app.
Welcome back, everybody. We're hanging out here at the Barrio Queen in Gilbert. Great crowd having some lunch this afternoon. We're here for your listening and dancing pleasure until 4 o'clock today. And it's always great when we have a chance to catch up with Kyle Vanden, Bosch, former Cardinal, Titan, and Lions defensive end. Because today we really want to try to dive into what this new defensive scheme is going to look like. Kyle, it's Jimmy B and Manoj. How are you today, pal?
Real well, guys. How are you?
We're sensational. Let's just start with this scheme. Did you play in both a 4-3 and a 3-4? And can you explain so our listeners understand what the concept differences are?
Yeah, no. So I only ever played in a 4-man front, and primarily the difference is in an out front. Typically, you have your defensive ends are bigger. They're lined up either in a just outside of an offensive tackle, like toe to toe, or sometimes head up. Your defensive ends and your nose. It's usually a zero technique, which means he's head up on the center. So, think of the Baltimore defense in the heyday. So you have 3 defensive linemen, and then technically, usually you'll have 1 or maybe 2 outside linebackers walked up. And they kind of become your edge rushers. They can also drop into the flat, cover tight ends one-on-one, those types of things. But when you think of that defense, you think of, oftentimes in a 3-4, your defensive linemen are space eaters. They take up blocks. Try to keep your linebackers clean. Like when we're talking about that Baltimore 3-4, Ray Lewis. Look, he made a ton of tackles, but the guys in front of him did a good job of eating blocks so he could just diagnose and flow side to side. Whereas 4-man front is typically you have 2 true defensive tackles and 2 true defensive ends, and then with 3 linebackers filling the gaps behind them.
So when you break it down for the Cardinals fans, and I guess one of the things they've been watching this 3-4 front and all the mechanisms that Vance Joseph had as far as scheming and blitzes and what have you. What are the benefits for you as a 4-3 guy or 4-3 front, Kyle, versus a 34 front? Yep. So what are the pros and what are the cons of the 4-3?
Okay, so the 4-3, your defensive linemen typically go. They're the ones you're depending on them to get pressure on the quarterback. You typically don't blitz as much. So you've got to find the right guys. It's not just guys taking up blocks. It's guys who are disruptive, can get into the backfield and get pressure on the quarterback without adding extra heat unless, you decide you want to as a change-up at times. Whereas 3-4, you can be more creative. You can bring blitzers from just about anywhere. And typically, even a 3-4, most of the time you will have at least 4 rushers on passing downs. It's just a matter of who's coming and where they're coming from. So, you need in a 4-3, again, if you're looking for a good example, you look where Nick Rollis and Jonathan Gannon came from.
Right.
To a point, they were criticized for not blitzing enough, even though they didn't need to, because their front 4 was so disruptive in getting in the backfield and getting hits and pressures and sacks.
All right, now I've got a 2-part question for you. It's on Isaiah Simmons. Where does he fit into all of this? And the second part of that question is very simple. He did not have his year option exercised. If you're a player, how bad is that for you as a player, or do you just deal with it because you know it's a business?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily bad. Look, I'm sure he would have appreciated the $12+ million that the picking up the option would have given him, but he's essentially on a prove-it year, and not all of it is his fault. He was moved around. He was put in a number of different positions because he does have a lot of physical attributes that fit a lot of different positions. So, that's the hard part is, with me, the biggest thing with Isaiah Simmons is his inconsistency. He would have huge games. He's shown the ability to make game-changing impact-type plays. But at the same time, he would disappear for stretches and sometimes games at a time. So I think what they're looking for is a level of consistency. Now, that's hard to do when you're being asked to play a number of different positions. And Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rollis have recently said they want him to learn and master one position. So, now it's just a matter of figuring out where he fits best. And in my opinion, I think he should move back into either an inside or outside linebacker position. He's got tremendous speed and range and length, so he can play sideline to sideline, and he's not a liability in between the tackles either, because he has shown a level of physicality that you need to play the inside linebacker position. And I think he likes the physicality of the linebacker position, and so I think they'll move him back to linebacker and just let him learn that one position and see where that takes him this year. And then, as a player, I'm sure, again, he would have loved to have his 5th year picked up, but on a prove-it deal, even if the Cardinals aren't able to re-sign him and he has a great year, just based on what he might do next year and still based upon his physical tools. And if you put a 30-second highlight reel of Isaiah Simmons together, convinced, he's the next Lawrence Taylor. So, somebody will pay him, and he would get, a relatively longer-term contract when he hits free agency.
Kyle, let me follow up with that. Kyle Vanden, former defensive lineman for the Arizona Cardinals, Tennessee Titans, the Detroit Lions, joining us here on the right to the guest line. I think that where they've got him slotted right now, and I look at the depth chart for the Cardinals, I think the weak outside linebacker, the will linebacker, as we call it, that's where they've got him slotted. They got Dennis Gardeck as the strong side linebacker, and then Kazir White in the middle. I think that's a good outlook as far as Isaiah. The question I have for you, looks like they're moving Zaven Collins out to the left defensive end. So you go from a Mike linebacker to the defensive end. I know he's a big kid, 6'4", 245, 250. How much of an adjustment
3 minutes
is that going to be for him, going from a middle linebacker or Mike linebacker to defensive end?
Well, it's an adjustment, particularly because I'm not sure that he ever had his hand in the dirt in college. So it will be an adjustment. Now, it's much easier to move from, playing in space, even though at Mike backer, you're not technically in space. You're pretty much always in the action, but you don't have blockers on you instantly. Much easier to move from playing in space to moving to the D-line than vice versa. It's a whole new world once, you see some of these undersized defensive ends trying to be moved to either outside linebacker or a different position. It's often difficult. So, it's not an impossible feat. He didn't blitz a high percentage of the snaps last year, but he was, productive and flashed and
2 minutes.
He did come off the edge last year, so maybe this coaching staff sees something from him. He definitely has the frame, definitely has the speed, and has the physicality to step in and play the defensive end position. Now it's just a matter of seeing how it fits. Having him get reps and giving him the tools to succeed at that position.
Last question for you, and again, Kyle, I always appreciate you coming on. Got about a minute here. Garrett Williams, cornerback out of Syracuse, young man, got drafted in the 3rd round there, and you have Ojulari, who was your other pick. So 2 out of your top 3 picks defensively. Do you expect to see them? Obviously, they're going to play a lot of football, but do you expect any one of those 2 to be starting midway through the year or toward the end of the year, and how difficult will that be to have, if one, not 2 rookies in the starting lineup with this defense?
Yeah, well, they definitely both have the potential to. They were both really good college football
1
players.
minute. 1 minute.
I see B.J. Ojulari as having a shorter learning curve. He was productive. His sack numbers weren't crazy in college, but since 2020, he has the 2nd most pressures in college football, second to only Will Anderson Jr. So he does have the ability to win and consistently get in the backfield. Now it's just a matter of whether he's a bit undersized, whether he's and being every down player, that will determine whether he'll be a starter or not. Garrett Williams coming up with the ACL, it just depends on his timetable. All indications are that, he should be cleared either July or August, but at the same time, it takes some time and no two ACL repairs or recoveries are ever the same. There's potential for setbacks, and there's potential for, even when you're physically able, just the mental thought of, I still have this injury. I'm afraid to make these hard cuts. Things like that can take some time. So I see him more as potentially stepping in late in the season and not particularly early or mid-season.
Kyle, it's always good, pal, when you take time with us. Thank you again for your great insight. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. You too.
There you go. Kyle Vanden, Bosch, our guest here, rocking minutes with Jimmy B, and he is driven by All City Towing, and they have new vehicles, and they have a large fleet of vehicles as well, and they need you. That's correct. They are hiring. Just go to allcitytowing.com and click on careers. That's allcitytowing.com and click on careers. They pay very well. They have